Welcome to NarrativeNook where enchanted stories come to life. If you enjoy our stories, please subscribe, like and share to support our channel. Enjoy listening. It wasn't just a few hundred or a few thousand, nor was it a measly sum under 10 grand. It was a whopping $100,000. The kid in front of me looked like he was loaded. Cash, Fitch added. The driver's wife nodded, shock written all over her face. All right, I agree. It wasn't just about the money, it was more about not letting her husband's death be in vain. If someone had really poisoned her husband, she'd go to the ends of the earth to get justice for him. Arabella received a text from Jones and, with a sly smile playing on her lips, made her way to the basement. Jack was exhausted, taking a breather on the side. He hadn't expected this tough nut to crack to be so resilient, refusing to spill even a single word no matter how hard he was pressed. So you've been serving Eric because he saved your parents back in the day, and after they passed, he took you under his wing like a godson, and that's why you work for him? Stinger's eyelids lifted as he looked at Arabella, surprised she had figured it out so quickly. But what you don't know is that your biological parents, they were killed by him. Arabella's words made Stinger's gaze freeze, clearly disbelieving. Years ago, when your parents were fleeing your hometown with you by boat, they were ambushed by assassins hiding on board shortly after departure. Outnumbered, your parents were severely wounded, and you too were injured and fell unconscious. The boat had to turn back to shore. When you woke up, Eric told you he was a friend of your parents, said they were dead, and even showed you photos. He promised to give them a proper burial, and after the funeral, he took you to pay your respects. Then he encouraged you to learn skills and become capable so you could one day avenge your parents' death. Stinger's past played before his eyes, his normally dead gaze now flickering with emotion, stirred by the revelations. So, you became Eric's puppet, doing his bidding, repaying him for saving your life and raising you. The emotion in Stinger's eyes turned to agitation, and he finally spoke, "You're slandering him." His wrists were raw and bleeding from the rope's cruel bite, but he seemed impervious to pain, still deluding himself with thoughts of escape. With a swift jab, Jack landed a punishing blow to his stomach, forcing him to double over in agony, finally stilling him for a moment. The truth is, that grave was just a show for you. Your parents aren't dead. Eric has them locked up, tormenting them daily. He even taunts them with photos and videos of you, calling the enemy dad, just to punish them for leaving the organization, to twist the knife of their suffering. Stinger couldn't believe what he was hearing, his gaze at Arabella laced with hate, doubt, and belief. Hate for her having his parents' grave dug up. Doubt because she might be sowing discord. Belief because if it was all a lie, how could she craft such a convincing story, as if she had witnessed it all herself? "We found someone, a witness to what happened back then." Arabella glanced at her watch. "He'll be here any minute." Stinger's eyes remained a mix of conflict and distrust. The wait was only a few minutes, but to Stinger, it felt as long as a century. Finally, when Jones appeared with a man in tow, all eyes snapped to the newcomer. The man was short, barely 5'3". He removed his mask, revealing a ghastly scar running across his face, slashing from his forehead to his left cheek, distorting his left eye into a permanent squint, giving him an asymmetrical gaze. Pulling off his beanie, a bald patch was visible where hair refused to grow. He told Stinger that he too once tried to leave the organization, and as punishment, Eric's men had slashed him twice there, ensuring the hair would never return. The scar on his face was a testament to their cruelty. He had been loyal to Eric for years, thinking he was different, but anyone who tried to leave faced Eric's merciless vengeance. He had been stabbed multiple times and kicked off a cliff, fortunate to land in a tree. A good Samaritan saved him, and he spent his days thereafter in hiding. "Your parents' accident, I was there." The man known as Blade recounted the same story Arabella had told. Blade produced several old photographs and tossed them to Stinger. "These photos, I secretly took them back then for my own protection. They're all dated," he said as he flung the pictures towards Stinger. Some of the images would forever haunt him. The photographs of his parents, gaunt and ghostly, trapped in a dingy cellar, barely clinging to life. By the date stamped on those photos, they were still alive when he was 5, but they looked broken, their expressions twisted in a way that was nearly inhuman. The year you turned 5, your mom had already lost her mind, Blade spoke with a tone that was both matter-of-fact and chilling. The guards would mess with her for kicks, fooling her into eating filth and drinking urine. Your dad was powerless to stop it, held down, forced to endure the same humiliation. By the time you were 7, in order to spare your mom from more suffering, your dad took her life, and then his own. Stinger never imagined that his family's tragedy was orchestrated by Eric. And to think he had loyally followed this man, seeing him as a father figure, doing his bidding all these years. I wasn't directly involved back then, I was just by Eric's side, watching it all unfold. I didn't want to come forward, didn't want to draw a target on my back. But when I heard Eric was dead, and that someone was still out there, blindly loyal to him just like I used to be, well, I thought it was time to show my face. Of course, I got a nice little incentive for my trouble, along with a new identity. From here on, I'm set for a comfortable life. After Blade finished his story, his gaze shifted to Jones. I've told you everything I know. Am I free to go now? Arabella gave Jones a subtle nod, and he promptly responded, you have our word. You're lucky to have dealt with our boss. She doesn't play games. She says you get a new life, you'll get it. Blade looked over at Arabella, this young woman with an aura that screamed leadership, then back to Jones, his face etched with weariness and a hint of sorrow. You're fortunate to have found a good leader, not everyone's as lucky as you. After Blade left, Stinger remained in the basement, wailing like a banshee. Jack couldn't take the ear-piercing, soul-tearing cries anymore, especially as Stinger knelt on the floor, clutching the photographs, pounding the ground for what seemed like an eternity. Look, I get that this truth is a tough pill to swallow, but this ain't the way to handle it. Even if you punch a hole through the floor, it won't bring your folks back. Dead is dead. Maybe you should start thinking about revenge instead. Jack was blunt. My boss went to great lengths so you wouldn't be left in the dark, spending both manpower and a pretty penny. We're not doing this for kicks. We've helped you out. How about returning the favor? Spill what you know, will ya? No rush, Arabella said calmly, her gaze on the distraught man on the floor. You can tell us when you're ready. She signaled for Jack to follow her out. He was confused. They were just going to leave Stinger like this? What if he did something drastic? That evening, Stinger's emotions had settled, and he spoke up in a raspy voice, I want to see your boss. Why? Arabella asked coolly from the other side of the bars. A smirk played on Arabella's lips. It was indeed Serena. The mention of Serena sent Stinger into a frenzy, his hands gripping the railing as if he could bend the bars with his bare rage. Let me out. I'm gonna make her pay for what she did to my folks. An eye for an eye. I'm gonna get vengeance for my parents. Just thinking about the indignities his parents suffered before their deaths filled him with an uncontrollable urge to flay Serena alive, to exact every ounce of pain she owed. Arabella spoke with an eerie calm. Killing her won't bring your parents back to life. If they were still around, they'd want you to keep living, and to live well. Stinger's eyes reddened further, and despite his best efforts, tears breached his defenses and cascaded down his cheeks. After he had his moment to grieve, Arabella prodded, was the operation Eric ran doing the dirty work for Lucas and Beverly? Stinger was taken aback and asked, how did you figure that out? There's no deep-seated vendetta between Serena and the Collins couple. No motive to hit their company unless Eric's death was linked to them. Serena is notorious for holding a grudge. If she knew they were behind her biological father's death, she'd seek revenge. And how did you guess I was with the Lott family, working for them? I did my homework on you. It started when I found out Yolanda had neither the cash nor the connections to hire someone to kill me. Digging deeper, I stumbled upon your ties to Eric. So, you figured it out. Over the years, following Eric's orders, did you indirectly handle a lot of dirty work for Lucas and Beverly? Not a lot, Stinger replied, his gaze growing distant. I saw Eric as a father. Whatever he asked of me, I did without question, never thought to keep evidence for my own protection. After every job, Stinger would destroy any evidence, fearing it might come back to haunt him. Looking into his eyes, Arabella asked, what exactly did you do for them? Stinger hesitated, then, gazing at the girl before him, chose silence over confession. Don't worry. If you've hurt my family,
I'm willing to let bygones be bygones. After all, every debt has its debtor, and if Lucas and Beverly are truly to blame, they'll answer to me." Stinger was both surprised and skeptical, but ultimately, he laid all his cards on the table. "Eric and Martha were Lucas and Beverly spies in your household, reporting every move back to them. And it wasn't just them, there were others in the company on their payroll. The accidents that befell your parents and the instability within the company were all their doing." Stinger spilled everything he knew. Arabella couldn't believe her so-called aunt and uncle had been up to such filth behind the scenes. "There is something I'd like your help with." In the hospital, a young nurse hurried to find Martin Cooper. "Mr. Cooper, Ms. Cooper has had a sudden onset of septicemia early this morning. It's not looking good." As Martin heard the news, panic surged through him like a wildfire. "What are we waiting for? Why isn't she being treated yet? It's almost noon." "The doctors are doing everything they can," the nurse explained, her voice steady despite the urgency. "But the patient's chest cavity has multiple bleeding sites. The severity of her trauma has led to deep vein thrombosis in her legs. If a clot breaks free, she could suffer a heart attack or a stroke, any of which could undo all the progress we've made." "What now?" Martin's voice faltered as he grappled with the situation. "There's only one option left." The nurse hesitated before uttering the name, Dr. Bella. A heavy silence fell over Martin. He knew Arabella wouldn't operate on his family. Desperation laced his voice as he asked, "Isn't there anyone else?" "Mrs. Cooper's condition is critical. Apart from Dr. Bella, I can't think of anyone else with the expertise needed." The nurse sighed helplessly. "You could try to hire a renowned specialist from nearby, but I doubt they'd match Dr. Bella's skill." Everyone was aware of Arabella's miraculous touch. Martin stood, lost in thought, when another servant rushed in. "Sir, it's your mother. Her condition has worsened. She's been taken to the emergency room." Without hesitation, Martin bolted toward the emergency room. The doors were shut tight, the red light above them glowing ominously. He grabbed the first nurse he saw. "How's my mother?" "Florence has developed severe complications. I'm afraid she might not last 2 hours." "What do you mean?" The news hit Martin like a sledgehammer. After a few stunned seconds, he blurted out, "She can't die. You have to save her. The doctors inside will do their best, but the outlook isn't good. Mr. Cooper, you should prepare for the worst." "And what? Just stand here and watch my mother die?" Martin was frantic now. There has to be another way. Maybe Dr. Bella can do something. At the mention of Dr. Bella again, Martin's frustration erupted. "Dr. Bella, Dr. Bella. Is she the only one in this whole hospital who can do anything? With such a big institution, don't you have any capable doctor? Do we always have to call in outsiders?" The nurse, visibly shaken, replied, "Dr. Bella is a once-in-a-century talent. We don't know for sure if she can help, but if anyone can tackle this challenge, it's her. It's not that we want to push you to her, but she might be the only person who could save your family." He didn't use his own phone because Arabella had blocked him long ago. "It's me, Martin. Don't hang up." He was apologetic and desperate. "Arabella, I'm out of options. Only you can help me now. My mother and sister are in surgery. One attempted suicide, the other was in a car accident. Both are fighting for their lives. Can you save them? Please." To his disbelief, Arabella didn't refuse. Instead, she asked calmly, "When?" The nurse said, "My mother won't last 2 hours. Can you make it here in 2 hours?" Martin pleaded earnestly. "Serena's phone, 42 lives. Think it over and let me know," Arabella said, laying down her terms before abruptly ending the call. Martin was stunned, never expecting the phone to be what Arabella wanted. But then again, why should she help him for nothing? Aside from the phone, he had nothing else to offer that could possibly tempt her. After much contemplation, Martin was about to approach Serena when his phone rang with a call from the enigmatic figure. "Why haven't you dealt with the girl yet? You promised me action," the voice on the other end demanded angrily. "I need more time. My mother and sister's lives are at stake. They depend on her. Martin tried to pacify the caller. There's no more time. I want to hear she's been taken care of by midnight tomorrow, or I'll come for your family myself. Hello? Hello? Martin was fuming but couldn't afford to burn bridges just yet, especially since he had no intention of harming Arabella, hoping to stall for even a split second longer. Just then, Serena rolled out in her wheelchair to find him. Martin quickly crouched before her, speaking in a tone of negotiation. Serena, there's a way we can save Mom and Sis. Would you be willing to help? Serena, sensing the desperate tone in his voice and his expression, had an ominous feeling but still asked with feigned sincerity and asked, "What's the plan?" "Arabella wants your phone, in exchange for their lives." His words made Serena's smile freeze. Holding back her anger, she managed a smile and asked, "How does she know about the phone? Did you tell her?" Seeing Martin stay silent, Serena grew anxious. "Martin, that was our secret. How could you share it with an outsider? With the situation so dire, if we give her the phone, we could save Mom and Sis. Please." Martin implored. Serena's demeanor shifted. "That was the last thing my dad left me. Why should I hand it over? The guilty have their debts. She's after the mastermind of the hospital fire. Dad's gone. She won't go after you." "Martin, I can't." Serena maneuvered her wheelchair to leave. "I won't hand over the phone, no matter what. Anything else, I'd consider." "Serena." Martin quickly held onto the wheelchair, stopping her from leaving. "Our mom and sister are lying in there. So am I not family to you? Do you disregard my feelings just because I don't share the Cooper blood? In a crisis, you choose them over me. I never had to do things I didn't want to before. What's changed now?" Serena looked up at Martin, her eyes brimming with heartache. She hadn't expected to see his true colors at such a critical moment. "Serena, this is about my mom and my sister's lives. Please, I'm begging you." Martin suddenly dropped to his knees in front of Serena's wheelchair, grasping her hands earnestly as he pleaded. Serena felt both hurt and furious. "That cell phone was the last thing my dad gave me before he passed away. You're essentially asking me to trade my father's life for your mom and sister's lives. How can you be so heartless, so cruel?" Just then, a young nurse hurried over, clutching a critical condition notice, urging Martin to sign it. Martin was out of options. He knelt on the ground, dignity abandoned, begging Serena desperately. But Serena shrugged off his hands, pressing a button on her wheelchair's armrest to wheel away. The young nurse watching the scene felt a pang of sympathy, and even Dora and June, standing not too far off, couldn't believe how cold Serena could be. After all, Martin had sacrificed so much to save Serena. Now, all he wanted was the cell phone, which could potentially save 2 lives. Although they didn't know the secrets hidden within that phone, Serena's actions were undoubtedly breaking Martin's heart. Martin stood up, looking utterly defeated, and glanced at the notice in the nurse's hand. "Can I have a little more time?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Perhaps moved by Martin's plight, or maybe because she thought he still had a chance, the nurse nodded without pushing him further to sign. At that moment, Fitch approached with an autopsy report in hand. "I got permission from the truck driver's family to conduct an autopsy by a professional. This is the authoritative report. They found undigested medication in the driver's stomach, a drug that is different from sleeping pills but has a much stronger effect. It induces sleep, hallucinations, and makes one sleep deeply and soundly." Fitch shoved the report into Martin's hands. "This proves that the accident was no coincidence, it was orchestrated." "Fitch, I'm really busy now. I don't have time for this." Martin, frantic and feeling helpless, dialed Arabella's number, telling Fitch, "I need to speak with Arabella. My mother's condition is critical. We can talk about the driver's case later." Fitch stepped aside, waiting quietly. "No," Martin said, a mix of helplessness and sorrow in his voice. "She won't give it up." He had never asked her for anything before, and the one time he did need her help, she refused. Martin was dumbstruck, unable to comprehend why Arabella would do something like this. Why was she so intent on exposing Serena's true colors? I caught someone, Arabella said, pausing before continuing. He confessed that he was the one who pushed Florence down the stairs, and that he orchestrated the car accident as well. What are you saying? Martin's grip on his phone faltered. It felt as though his entire world had just imploded. He had always believed his mother's supposed suicide was the tragic consequence of his stubborn decision to get engaged to Serena. It had never crossed his mind that Serena herself could have orchestrated such a vicious act. And his sister's car accident. He had thought it was nothing more than a tragic mishap. The traffic cameras had even shown Jennifer's truck driver dozing off behind the wheel, leading to the crash. But Fitch had just revealed that the driver had been drugged, making it clear the accident was premeditated. Given Arabella's straightforward nature, Martin knew she had no reason to lie. She must have concrete evidence to make such claims. But why would Serena do such things? There had been no deep-seated hatred between her and Martin's mother or sister. If there was any tension, it was only because his family didn't support their union. Could that really have been enough for her to harbor such resentment and resort to murder? It gets worse, Arabella continued, her voice calm. Serena also hired a hitman to kill me, thinking she could use Yolanda to do her dirty work. But she didn't expect her accomplice to spill everything. What floor is Florence on? The 16th, Martin answered, still reeling from the shock, struggling to process everything. Moments later, Arabella arrived on the 16th floor. Arabella. Martin hadn't expected her to arrive so quickly. A mix of gratitude and guilt washed over him. She could have easily turned a blind eye, but she hadn't. Just then, the doctor issued another critical condition notice. A young nurse reluctantly approached Martin with a consent form to sign. As the nurse hurried over, she spotted Arabella and exclaimed with relief, "Miss Bella." Mr. Cooper had managed to bring in the big guns. With Arabella here, it seemed the form didn't need signing after all. "How is Florence doing?" Arabella asked as she followed the nurse toward the operating room. The nurse quickly explained the situation and led Arabella to change into a sterile surgical gown. As Martin watched Arabella's retreating figure disappear into the OR, a heavy weight lifted from his shoulders. Fitch also let out a sigh of relief. As long as Arabella was here, there was no one she couldn't save. Meanwhile, Serena, seated in a wheelchair, emerged from the recovery room. After a brief moment of hesitation, she decided to return to the estate. First, she didn't want to give Martin any chance to plead with her. Second, she feared he might find her hidden phone at the estate and hand it over to Arabella. Watching the woman he once adored, Martin's emotions twisted into a tangled knot. Serena's gaze was cold, as though she feared he might cling to her. She maneuvered her wheelchair toward the elevator. Martin blocked her path. "Where are you going?" he demanded. In that moment, he clung to a last shred of hope, wishing she wasn't as heartless and terrifying as he feared. Serena seemed afraid of her own softening heart. Her demeanor turned frosty as she said, "Go get some fresh air. Rushing back to the manor to hide your phone, huh?" Martin didn't crouch in front of her like he used to when they talked. His tone was strange, laced with sarcasm and disbelief. Serena didn't dwell on his words. All she wanted was to leave as quickly as possible. "I told you I'd give you anything. Anything but that phone." She turned her face away, refusing to meet his eyes, her expression resolute. Martin gazed at the face he had once loved to the core, swallowed his sorrow, and asked quietly, "What about your life? Would you give that too?" "Martin." Serena snapped, sensing his unreasonable shift. "If Arabella demanded my life, would you hand me over? Is my life so worthless to you? Would you trade my life for your mother's and sister's? You just said you'd give anything but the phone." Disappointment seeped into Martin's voice, cold and heavy, as he realized her words might have been hollow. Still, clinging to the faintest shred of hope, he pressed on. "The doctor says Mom won't last 2 hours. Can you really bear to watch her die? Arabella told me she could save 2 lives, as long as you give her the phone." Serena, unaware that Arabella was already in the operating room saving Florence, snapped impatiently, "Martin, can you not? I've said it 1,000 times. It's not happening. I'm not giving her the phone. Fitch, watching from the side, chimed in harshly. If it weren't for Martin saving you back then, you'd be 6 feet under. He sacrificed so much for you, endured utter betrayal, and you can't hand over a lousy phone. What do you know? Serena shot back coldly. She had never liked Fitch. If you're so capable, you help. She wheeled herself away stubbornly, but Martin let out a bitter, mocking laugh. If Arabella hadn't shown up, would he have been left to sign the critical condition notice, helplessly watching his mother and sister die? I'll tell you this, Fitch said sharply. If it were you in there, Martin would trade his life for yours without a second thought. Before his last breath, he'd make sure you were cared for, had money to live on, and a life of comfort. But Serena remained unmoved. Fitch's words didn't sway her, nor stir even a flicker of conscience. Out of patience, Serena turned her wheelchair, ready to leave. Why did someone push my mom down the stairs? Martin suddenly blurted. Serena froze. Everyone nearby was stunned. What? Florence hadn't jumped? The culprit was the person in the wheelchair? Why stage a car accident to kill my sister? Martin's eyes reddened with fury. Serena's mind swirled in chaos. She shifted uncomfortably. Just because they opposed our relationship, you had to kill them? His voice cracked, trembling uncontrollably. Are you still the Serena I knew? His voice was loud, too loud, and when Serena looked up, she saw his eyes glistening with unshed tears. The disappointment in his gaze was the same she had once seen in Kenneth and Louise's eyes years ago. What are you talking about? Serena denied sharply, though a flicker of guilt stirred inside her. You think I'd make this up? Tears slid down Martin's cheeks, but even then, she deflected. Do you have proof? Are you accusing me just because I won't give you the phone? Do I look like pure evil in your eyes? Did you do it or not? Martin's eyes burned into hers as his voice rose. Did you push my mom down the stairs? Did you arrange the car crash? Just tell me, did you do it? His voice echoed down the corridor. Everyone heard it. Fitch, the servants, the bodyguards. No. Serena shouted back just as loudly. By now, she was a seasoned liar. Her face burned with anger and indignation, as though Martin were unjustly forcing a confession from her and she was completely innocent. Martin let out a humorless laugh, sad, self-mocking. Tears streaked his face. Knowing me as you do you really think I'd be asking these questions without solid evidence? Looking straight into her eyes, he spoke with crushing disappointment. After everything, you still won't tell me the truth? Who's been feeding you these lies? Serena shot back, convinced Martin was trying to set a trap. Her eyes reddened as she challenged, Do you really believe strangers over me? Martin's bitter laugh deepened. He had once fallen for that pitiful, wronged expression of hers, mistaking her for someone pure and innocent. Let's call off the engagement, Martin said suddenly. You don't belong in our family. What do you mean? Serena's expression darkened immediately. They were in the hospital corridor. The nurses and patients in nearby rooms kept their distance, but the servants, the bodyguards, and Fitch were all there, watching, listening. Martin didn't care. He announced their breakup publicly, stripping her of dignity. What am I to you? Someone you can get engaged to or break up with on a whim. Have you ever once considered my feelings? Serena lashed out. And what about mine? Martin's voice rose with pain. Have you ever cared about my feelings? You knew my mother had a heart condition, and yet you had someone push her down the stairs. His voice trembled with fury. You staged a car accident to kill my sister. If it weren't for her luck, would she even be alive right now? You caused an accident that dragged an innocent driver into it. That's murder, Serena. You tried to take 3 lives, just to vent your frustrations. How can you be so cruel? Are you even the Serena I knew? Because I don't recognize you anymore. Serena watched him unravel. A flicker of guilt crossed her face, followed quickly by unease. Did he truly know everything? Who could have told him? Stinger? No. Impossible. Even though Stinger had been out of contact for 2 days, he was fiercely loyal. He would never betray her. So how did Martin find out? As long as Stinger didn't confess, there was no evidence that could lead back to her. Right? You're still wondering if I have evidence, aren't you? Martin's self-mockery reached its peak. Even after all this, you don't feel the slightest remorse for what you've done. All you can think about is how to cover your tracks, how to fool me into believing you're innocent. Serena's expression darkened. Now I finally understand why the Collins family cast you out, Martin said coldly. And why my family was against our engagement from the start. Because you are terrifying.
If you have enjoyed this story, please like and share so others can see it too. Also hit the subscription button and notification bell so you can be notified on our next release. Thank you for your support. God bless you.